for quite some time. Don't worry, ladies. I know you haven't. I used to do some talk with authors in reality on this channel. Well, it's back. This time, Anthony Wade is the target. Since some of you ladies know, uh, Anthony has written his first book or something.
Second book.
Oh, this is your second?
Yeah, I have a book on tithing from 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. Two books. So what's
It's
the
it's it's
wonderful?
sold it sold dozens of copies.
Oh,
What was your question?
all right. So what does you want to do some mention in case these ladies, viewers don't don't know about it?
Well, hello, Laura. Gemma Corn definitely knows about it because she's
Uh,
actually been
oh, I see.
been, been kind enough to review the first draft for me.
Wow.
Um, what was your question? I'm sorry.
All right. So what is your second book about?
The second book right now, the working title is Dominionism, the Last Idol of the Church Age. And the subtitle is Using Snarkyisms to Explain Christian Nationalism. So it's kind of a bit of a hybrid. I believe satire is one of the best mediums for writing. Hi, Laura.
Yeah.
Um, the book itself is very serious. The matter of Christian nationalism is a weighty matter. There's, I think, 17 or so chapters. I just try to mix some snark along the way to hopefully keep a weighty matter somewhat light. Thank you, Laura. There's actually two full satirical chapters. One is what would happen if the Apostle Paul called into Dr. Michael Brown's radio show, and the other is what would happen if Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount at a Breakers conference. So,
Mm.
so those were like scripts that I had to write out, and those are essentially the chapters. Um, but we cover each individual mountain of the seven mountains gets its own chapter,
Oh boy.
including discussing how what has conquering those mountains so far done. What
Mm.
has it resulted in? So, like conquering the media mountain has resulted in the chosen, for example. Um, there's kind of like an intro chapter on the purpose-driven church, because that's like the foundational underpinning of the apostate church system today.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chapter on rewriting American history, because dominionism doesn't work unless you turn the founding fathers into, like, elevation church, and that's, which insults me on many levels, because it insults me on a scriptural level, but insults me on the level that I used to be an American history teacher.
Mm.
So if you think that the people who were trying to escape religious persecution came here to set up a theocracy, that's like a whole nother level of stupid that I really need to, like, break through, because and I understand why people believe that, because that's what the NAR teaches, but it's really quite suspect. There were very devout Christians in the founding fathers. John Adams, if he was alive today, would be sitting in a pew next to you in an evangelical church.
Mm-hmm.
But Thomas Jefferson, I mean, he rewrote the Bible. He took out all the references to Christ's deity. He didn't believe he was the Son of God. He removed all of his miracles.
Yep.
So, the majority of the founding fathers were what's known as deists,
Mm.
who believed in a higher power, but did not necessarily believe that Jesus was God.
Mm. Yeah. And from the little I've read of some of the founding fathers, George Watson, yes, he did go to his Episcopal church, I believe, and things like that. But he, for whatever reason, didn't participate in communion, which would be odd for any Christian uh,
George,
to
yeah.
do. But I didn't, I didn't get the sense that he was somebody who was going to seek the Lord Jesus in the way that we would see. Their
No,
religious theology
George,
was very different.
George Washington was a third degree Mason.
Hmm.
So it is true that he he warmed up to Christianity towards his dying age, I should say, as you know, many are prone to do when they see the end kind of coming. Uh, but he didn't even like free his slaves upon his death. He transferred
Mm-hmm.
his wife. So he never had a great Christian epiphany, so to speak. But I think a lot of the founding fathers understood that Christianity was a good way to promote morality amongst the masses.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely.
um, I don't like he's not John Adams. He's not like he's not like the atheists. There was a couple of atheists in the founding fathers. He wasn't like them.
Mm.
Um, but I'm pretty sure a third degree Mason is kind of antithetical to Christianity.
Hmm. More like utilitarian. Um, Now, I assume since the central key is on dominionism, you probably have a chapter on exactly what dominionism is.
Well, I mean, I'll break it down. The introduction explains kind of how we got here. I use an example of how Mitt Romney decultified Mormonism. So that's a
Oh,
fun thing to look forward to. Chapter 1 is you were destined before the foundations of the world to serve in the parking lot ministry. How Rick Warren destroyed the church. Chapter 2, we start getting into the mountains. So gnarly faith, conquering imaginary mountains to help Jesus. Chapter 3 deals with the religion mountain. Chapter 4 deals with the family mountain. Chapter 5 deals with the mountains of indoctrination, which is education and media.
mhm.
Um, Chapter 6 is called Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Heresy, the Arts and Entertainment Mountain. Chapter 7, which is The Last Mountain, Revival Chasing. If we can only get Mark Robinson elected.
Get who elected?
Mark Robinson was a candidate for governor in North Carolina, and he was beloved by the NAR Dominionist crowd. He would rail against like all their pet peeves. He would guest speak at churches, and he was the guy that it turned out that he was posting on a website called nudeafrica.com,
Uh oh.
where he was saying that slavery should make a comeback, which is odd since he's black. Yeah, if only we can get Mark Robinson elected.
Oh.
But that's the political mountain. Then chapter 8 is the Titanic theology of conferred righteousness, or why did Rose let Jack die? Which is obviously a homage to the movie Titanic. In the concept of conferred righteousness, which is, I believe, a term I coined. I don't believe I heard that anywhere else. Means that in order for dominionism to work, you have to call evil good, right? It's not good enough to just simply say that you believe Donald Trump is the best candidate for president. You have to pretend he's King Cyrus. You have to pretend that's literal. I'm not making that's not snark. You have to pretend that he's Elijah. Like when on inauguration day, Mark Driscoll tweeted, "Elijah's back in the White House," and that's funny because I just don't remember Elijah raping anybody. I don't remember him being convicted of 34 felonies. That's just odd to me. So, the conferred righteousness means that you're conferring righteousness to something that doesn't deserve it. And what it does is it absolutely ruins your witness for Jesus Christ, because the world might think the things of God are foolishness, but they understand the things of hypocrisy real well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a kind of key chapter for understanding how it all kind of works together.
Mm.
Chapter 9 is cease and deist instead of desist, which is whitewashing American history. Then we do the satirical interlude with what if Jesus spoke at the Breakers Conference. Chapter 11 is don't put God in a box, man, when religion becomes a dirty word. So I deal with the propensity that we see today, particularly from the NAR
Yep.
Dominionist camp, that religion is now a bad word, right? I mean, this started like 10 years ago with the silly video of that young guy who was like, I don't want a religion, I want a relationship. And I'm like, I even said it back then. If your relationship is not one of Lord and servant, you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Mm.
So, it's enough of the lovey-dovey stuff. God is love, but you understand your role in the relationship. You're not partnering with God. He's not your wingman. He's not your buddy. So that's kind of what that chapter is dealing with. Chapter 13 is pay no attention to that racism behind the curtain, or I call the Charlie Kirkification of the church. So yes, we get into, and in that chapter, I will get into all of the various quotes from Charlie Kirk's funeral from the speakers, which are absolutely horrific from a Christian standpoint, with the exception of Erica Kirk, who did give the only bright moment of the day when she actually forgave the assassin.
Yeah.
Um,
And even though you may not necessarily like it, Donald Trump was actually honest about the situation of what
well,
he said.
well, it's a shame that he came after her. I'm not sure why the widow was not the headline. But after she said she forgave, he came up and said we shouldn't forgive our enemies. Praise Jesus. So so that's we get so Kirk gets a chapter for himself.
Mhm.
Um, then was the second chapter 14 is the second satire. If what happens if the Apostle Paul calls into Dr. Michael Brown's radio show. Chapter 15 is what I call Cindy Jacobs' clown car, bringing a knife to a spiritual gunfight. Chapter 16 and 17 are two different vignettes on culture wars. The first one is called "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry Baker,"
Oh no!
which is an old devotional I did over 10 years ago, but I redid it for today. Those who may remember the initial culture war 10, 12 years ago was with the Kleins in Oregon who refused to bake a cake for a gay couple.
Oh yes. Oh, I thought
Um,
that was in Colorado. Okay.
no, that was the second one.
Oh.
That was the second one. The first one was the Kleins. They were from Oregon,
Mm.
and and I remember at the time, like how the church was just like giddy over like what like Jesus would, like you're a baker, so if don't be surprised if somebody asks you to bake a cake. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, did you check all the other abominations for all of your customers? Were you making sure that none of them were sleeping outside of marriage, sleeping with somebody outside of marriage? No, then you're a hypocrite. Just it's I used Jonathan Edwards' sermon from 16 whatever it was called "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God,"
Yes, I know.
and I modify it to today. It's bad enough that sinners have to face an angry God. They shouldn't have to face an angry baker, because I mean what they basically said to them is, like you offend me. That's literally like the quote that they said to this couple. It's like you didn't even try to like win them to Christ. That's not the gospel. And what that's done is it's set the stage for the next 12 years of the most ridiculous culture wars that we see like every day playing out.
Mhm.
In the middle there, I deal with the two outrages from the Olympics that were drubbed up by the NAR.
Oh.
Do you remember that last year? Um,
Oh yes, I remember the weird
so
uh
the
Lord's Supper table.
Yeah, the first one was you see, because this was the Olympics, and the Olympics are based upon Greek gods, and one of those Greek gods was named Dionysus. They did a representation of a painting from Dionysus. Now it was bizarre. There was like a naked guy painted blue, and it was like wackadoodle out there. But the church thought it looked like the Last Supper from Da Vinci, and they freaked out. And I'm like, you know, they wouldn't even accept no for it. The organizers like, we don't know what you're talking about. Like it was so embarrassing for the cause of Christ. Like you can't understand the difference between a 19th century French painter and a 16th century Italian painter. And by the way, last time I checked, Da Vinci wasn't at the Last Supper. He painted the Last Supper. So why are you offended? And then if you actually Google parodied Last Supper, you'll find a whole host of things that nobody got upset with long before this thing. Like all the disciples were different serial characters, and Jesus was Captain Crunch. It's like, so none of that offended you, but this did. 6 months before an election, wink, wink. And then the next one was the boxer, the female boxer who was born with male chromosomes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
apparently everybody then became an expert on scientific chromosome DNA within the church, and they kept referring to her as a trans person, which she was not. She was a woman who was born with male chromosomes. Now, if you want to say that gives her some kind of an advantage, that she shouldn't be boxing as a female, that ship set sail 10 years before. She's been boxing professionally for 10 years, and she's also not Mike Tyson. She's lost 7 times. She
Mm,
lost in the first round of the 2020 Olympics.
mm,
So maybe the Italian girl who lost to her just lost to her because she wasn't as good as she was. But not to mention the fact that weirdly the church ended up lining up with Russia. They ended up lining up with the boxing organization that disqualified her, which is run by Vladimir Putin. So it's like, good job, church. So and then the last chapter is Culture War 2, uncovering the true enemy who comes to kill, steal, and destroy, Taylor Swift. Because if there's anybody the church can't stand, it's Taylor Swift, and I don't get it. So we go into like there's an article from Charisma where somebody tries to like apply her lyrics and pretend that like she's like Satan, if you know, I'm not a Swifty by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm pretty sure like 90% of her songs are about her ex boyfriends. So like I would never date Taylor Swift, right? Because I wouldn't want a song written about me. But to pretend that like she's like the spawn of Satan, while you're listening to like Rick Pino, why don't you lead me into your chambers? Lyrics, Christian lyrics. Jesus is my boyfriend, Misty Edwards. Why don't you clean your own house before you worry about what Taylor Swift is writing? So,
that sounds suspiciously familiar, like something I heard about a long time ago when I was a kid. Uh, oh, if you play the Beast Boy or one of those guys album backward,
Led
it's
Zeppelin, baby.
what?
Led Zeppelin. If
Oh,
you
that was
play
that one.
if
Good.
that was the rumor, Zeppelin or maybe Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, because
Oh, great.
there was never a more insidious series that was put out than what it's called. They sold their soul for rock and roll, and the lies that this guy trafficked in to try to pretend that like everybody who plays rock music, has consigned their soul to the devil. And I'll be honest, like I find there's plenty of secular music that is actually probably more Christian than Christian music. So I'm a pretty big critic of a lot of modern Christian music because it doesn't worship God, it worships you.
Yep.
Like how is it worshiping God to tell him how much he loves you?
Mm. Yeah.
So maybe I should have added a chapter on worship, but
Oh, oh, and hijack. What's his name? Matt Everhart. He wrote a book called Worshiptainment.
I don't think I got to read that one, but yeah.
Oh, it's a book where he kind of going after the modern day worship setting. He's not really talking about contemporary worship where we use the keyboard and that. But let's see, the songs that are sung, like you were saying, and I don't know why somebody would want the pastor to dress up as Batman or some other weird stuff that goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay close to the subject matter at hand.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, the satirical things are still kind of related. The Rick Warren thing is needed for. Oh, you watch that documentary, Laura? The Soul for Rock and Roll.
Mm,
Um, it's as somebody I got saved in 2002 when I was
mm,
35, so I've been to like probably 80 concerts before I was saved.
mhm.
Um, you know, don't be wrong. Once I got saved, there's certain music I can't listen to anymore because it grieves me, grieves the Holy Spirit, in my opinion. You
Mhm.
know, if you listen to overly sexualized lyrics, overly profane lyrics, but you know, I'm pretty sure like listening to Paul Simon's probably not like corrupting my soul,
Yeah.
but listening to Rick Pino might be.
Well,
So
I never really listened to music, so I have no idea. But I am aware it, it's the lyric that's the problem. More so, instrument. Well, if you
no,
play,
that's an excellent point, and it's a point I made when I reviewed "They Sold Us All for Rock and Roll." It's music itself. It cannot be good or evil. You know what I'm saying? Lyrics can be good or evil.
yeah,
Certainly, there's music that I don't necessarily, like I'm not into like rap or anything like that, but I can't say that it's like the beat itself is necessarily like evil. I think that's kind of stretching things a
yeah,
bit. So
oh yeah. And I know that one of the big complaints I've run into is people saying, "Oh, it's the way some of the instruments you play the right chords and creates like an emotionally manipulative environment and
yeah,
everything."
yeah. If you want to see that, go to church on Sunday
Well,
because that's all they do. That's what they specialize in. Why does a preacher who's like asking for the offering need to have like emotional piano playing in the background? Why?
yeah,
What it's all and the reason why I'm being rhetorical. The reason why is because the Spirit of God is not there, and that they're trying to pass off emotional reactions as
mhm,
spiritual reactions.
yeah. Oh boy, that's all. That's gonna should be a fun book to read. Uh, and
I hope it is.
how you doing with getting that thing published?
Uh, Laura says she's a hippie from the '60s and '70s. I'm with
What?
you. I'm with you. I grew up in the '80s, but but my heart was stuck in the '70s. So
Mhm.
how am I doing it? I'll be honest. I haven't done any real work yet on getting it published. So I mentioned it in a couple of my videos if people had ideas. I have a publisher for my first book, but I don't know if I'm going to necessarily use them again. And at first, I haven't really talked to the guy in 12 years. Um, but I was also very desperate to get that published at the time, so I allowed probably more creative editing than I normally would have. So like sometimes I read my book on tithing, and I'm reading sections, and I'm like, I don't remember writing this. uh, for the most part, it's me though. That book is about all the different lies that pastors tell to push tithing. So
Oh,
each chapter deals with a different lie.
hmm.
So you know, one chapter, if I remember correctly, was like the Robin Morris, your money's going to get cursed lie. Another chapter is the Abraham tithe lie. Um, so I mean, I thought it was a good book. The problem is when you're targeting a book, you kind of, if you want to get maximum effect, you shoot for like a large audience, right? Well, this could have been a smaller audience. You deal with Christians first, and then only Christians who don't actually want to believe in tithing,
Hmm.
who actually want to read the reasons why. Um, like I said, it sold dozens of copies. But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, somebody else mentioned that Gemma Corn, John Elving. Uh, I, I have relationships with a fair amount of like the discernment community, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation with Brother John.
John
Yeah,
actually,
I've commented on his posts.
yeah, John actually, what he did in some case, I think he did through Amazon Kindle publishing. You'd have to double check with him.
Yeah,
Uh, but here's the thing, and that's what I did with my first book. But
yeah,
also, John also made it available in PDF form and that in ways so somebody couldn't afford it because his heart and his ministry isn't in the sermon. It's actually uh,
street
taking care of the
evangelism.
homeless and the
Yeah,
drug addicts and all that stuff.
yeah.
And,
Rob Wilson recommended just doing the Amazon self publishing, and I may end up doing that. But since now I know some folks, I was curious if anybody had anybody who might be interested. I think it's what's up, Gary. I think it's if I might gently tap myself on the back, I think it's a first of all I think it's a good topic. Um, and I think that my purposely trying to keep it entertaining it as well as educational. I
Hi,
hope
Gary.
I hope it reads well. I don't know. I think Gemma Corn last time said that so far she thinks it's pretty good.
Mm, yeah, and that's the book I have. I meant to get back to reading, Jim, and there's a lot more to it. Hey, we got Gary joining us, and probably scratching his head. What's the topic really about?
Uh, I guess the topic is Christian nationalism in general, but
Yeah.
I think you marketed it somehow as having something specifically to do with my book. But you know, Christian nationalism, we can have a discussion, and essentially that, like, I read the chapters already. Um, so I think that if you're interested in the subject, it's
Mm-hmm.
oh, thank you, Gemma Coyne. She
Yeah.
says it's flipping brilliant. Just make sure that that's the exact quote when you review it. So when you go on Amazon, it's flipping
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. um, so for, like, 12 years I was kicking around ideas, but my old ministry was all written, so I never started anything. But now I've been doing the YouTube thing for a little over a year, and I miss writing. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, what's up, Dan? So when I thought, like, what subject to write about, even though it's again going to be a sliver of a
Again.
subset of a population that might be interested in reading it, um, I thought that I had a very large knowledge base to draw from. I've been writing about NAR dominionism for 20 years now, and
Mm-hmm.
the title is actually the name of a group on Facebook that I run called NAR dominionism, the last idol of the church age,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I think it is. So
Yeah. Uh, and have we kind of covered enough that you're comfortable talking about, or could we can easily move up to?
whatever
Uh,
you want to talk about, Barry, it's your show.
all right, so then I wanted to make sure because uh, I was thinking of Laura's magical uh, church or whatever.
Magical Mystery Church.
I don't, I'm sorry, but when I think of that name, I'm thinking magical kingdom, not magical church. Miss- uh, Well, she was covering headset thing, the one where he said uh, what something about Armageddon and bringing him.
The reporting is um, that Hegseth essentially told the generals to tell the troops
Yeah,
that they were engaging in the Iran war for the sole purpose of
yeah.
bringing about Armageddon and the second coming of Christ. Pretty frightening stuff. So
Oh, yes, and create confusion and all that. And the reason I asked it about if you define dominionism because technically, um, Doug Wilson is a dominionist, even though he's not NAR.
who's not Nar?
Doug Wilson
Yeah,
is
Doug Wilson is an uber absurdly Christian nationalist. Listen. I mean, NAR's is kind of like maybe we should start there. It's kind of like become a catch-all for everything.
yes,
And Laura, yes, I'm on Facebook under my name, so you can look me up in front of me. Um, the NAR, we all know, was coined by C. Peter Wagner.
yeah,
In the book, I refer to him as C. Pete because that's how Jesus calls him. And he primarily focused on two things. One was the false apostolic authority paradigm that God was putting the band back together, and lo and behold, he was one of the apostles. Which you always got to love when your theology starts with you hitting the spiritual equivalent of Powerball. And the second half of that was dominionism.
mm,
And as the years went on, and C. Peter was eventually passed away, people like Lance Wallnau kind of took a lot of these dominionist theories and put them on steroids
mm,
with the Seven Mountains Mandate, and um, now it's my belief, and I'm sure people would disagree, but it's my belief that the primary core feature of the NAR today is dominionism.
mm,
like I remember the American Gospel Roundtable with what's her name, Holly Pivot, and Holly and Doug. Uh, they spent most of their time referring to the NAR only as the apostolic side of it, and and by doing so, they just let Dr. Brown like completely off the hook.
Yeah.
So,
What
um,
Dan was saying here doesn't make sense for Hector to would say that given
why would you think Wilson is against that?
relationship to uh, first of all, Hexet himself is a Presbyterian,
No, but now he identifies as part of Wilson's flock.
right? So Hexet is. What do you think Doug Wilson is? He's a Presbyterian pastor.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure I understand the foundation. Like, to me, it wouldn't surprise me if Doug Wilson believed that too. You know, that's kind of like right up his crazy alley, isn't it? Or am I missing something, Dan?
Okay, Dominionism is about exerting control and influence and acting uh, as if we have the authority to go do things and impose Christian nationalism. Doug Wilson said in his book he would kind of like uh, be happy to have a non-Christian as long as it's abiding by biblical principles and ideas. That was Doug Wilson. He uh, is a Christian nationalist in that sense, uh,
Mm,
and that. But even he had to kind of go after Joe Webbon and that. But Doug, and I actually read some of the stuff he put on his own blog post on blog and Mablog.
save it.
So, yeah, there are some definite problem with Doug. Hexas is, and it goes is connected with him because that's who he uh, that's his pastor.
Right.
So, and
But
he is a dominionist,
yeah,
and
no,
that
no, I got it now, Dan. I wasn't aware he was post millennial. Um, first of all, the answer to the question that Dan asked is my answer is I don't know. I just read the reporting that allegedly I don't know if it was ever confirmed. I'll be honest, I didn't follow up on it. It didn't strike me as being untrue. It struck me as being very plausible. Not to mention the fact that, you know, how do I say this? I think that there's a lot of forces within the current administration that use Christianity because they need to continually motivate the evangelical base to vote. Because
yeah.
without that, they have no chance of winning any elections. So they often throw this kind of red meat out to the apostate church system. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's all this is just like to float a story so that the hardcore evangelicals like the Jack Hibbs of the world
Hmm.
can can rally around it. Has my book been published? Because I'm not. You mean the book on Christian nationalism? Because the answer to that is no. That's the first draft is complete. Uh, I have a couple of folks who have been kind enough to read it for me. Because once you write something, you can't be objective to read it yourself.
Yeah.
And in the interim, I need to find a publisher for it.
Yeah.
Uh, if you're talking about the first book, the one from 14 years ago, that's on Amazon. It's called Fleecing the Flock. That's on tithing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You basically me and Rob Wilson apparently both said basically the same thing. Hey, give Amazon Kindle a shot.
Yeah, if nobody has any, interesting publisher who would be interested in this book, because I do think that uh, that it's a decent topic, and I think that I hate talking about myself. I hope
Uh,
I hope it's written well. So I would hope that there would be an interest from a publishing standpoint. The problem, of course, is that it's probably not going to be a bestseller, right? Because most people are probably not going to want to read about Christian nationalism in general.
the,
Particularly within the church system, they're not going to want to read something against what they believe because the NAR Dominionist camp has so infected the entire American church.
um, well, you could always do the Frank Viola tactic when he said pagan Christianity. That was his book, And basically, the thing is with Amazon Kindle, you keep a lot of the royalty and the money and
Thirty
that.
percent is what I heard.
Uh, no, I thought it was. I forget what the percentage is. So you do.
30's not bad. It's certainly better than what I get now.
Oh yeah,
So I mean, publishing is, there's always this like, false belief that like people can make a ton of money from writing books, unless you're like Joel Osteen, unless you sell, millions and millions and millions of copies. That's probably, and most of that money comes from book deals themselves.
yeah. Uh,
Exactly, Gary. And most of the liberals obviously are anti-Christian to begin with. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, I wanted to write the book because I think it's important, but I'm under no illusions that it's gonna, like, sell
oh,
millions and millions of copies, because quite frankly the target audience is so small.
hmm. Well, with the way things are being politicized, I wouldn't be so sure.
Thank you, Gemma Corn. In case, because I know Gary came late, Gemma Corn has been kind enough to be one of the two people who is reviewing the first draft.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and that's correct. I try very hard to stay directly attached to Scripture. So this is not just like my opinion writing. I hope that I've successfully backed up everything with Scripture.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm kind of liking what he's saying here. I heard this what you're responding to. Okay.
Gary's responding. He said that. Yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying. So, um, the perfect example, Gary, is Melania's book, right? Or her movie deal from Bezos. Like the public was clamoring for a biopic on Melania Trump. So, and I think, what did she get? 60 million for that? Yeah, that's money laundering,
Yeah.
flat out.
Uh, I I do believe that people are interested, but they also want to listen to audio versions as well.
Yep.
So, and that is a possibility because I listen to audio at times too, audio narration.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Gary, I hope you're wrong, because I certainly name names in the book.
Oh wait,
But I'll be honest. I did that in the tithing book also. Each chapter was about a specific lie, and each lie was generally attached to various false teachers.
oh
Like
boy,
Robert Morris had his own chapter. So
yes, yeah, and I think I've read his book. Somebody said, "Wow, this is a great book." I read it and I'm like, okay,
you mean his book about cursed money?
no, about blessing. I don't remember what he
Yeah.
wrote. It was a yellow book.
Yeah, he created the insidious lie that if you don't give him your first 10%, then God will curse all of your money. So, and for him at least, it was profitable because he's sitting on $100 million.
Oh, I don't
But
remember seeing that. I probably missed it. I just saw all the, ooh, look at the, you can't outgive God and
yeah,
stuff.
that's another tithing precept. Listen, I remember one time I was talking about Joseph. I was reviewing Joseph Prince, who was doing a piece on tithing, and I'm like, "You're preaching tithing, the grace man, the antinomiist, greasy grace guy." So all of the law got nailed to the cross except for tithing.
Hmm. Oh, oh, I know. We know that, Gary. We know you're being facetious as usual.
But I'll
And,
be I'll be honest. Since I wrote the tithing book, I think the church has come a long way in understanding that tithing is basically,
yeah.
a scam. And by the way, just to be clear, like, I spend the first part of that book explaining that I am not anti-giving at all. I think that the sowing and reaping is a universal principle. I
Yeah.
believe if you find a church that's preaching the gospel,
Hmm.
you won't find a better place for your money. You should probably give more than 10%. Just don't tell me that it's tithing. Don't tell me that it's a compulsory system, which would violate Corinthians,
Mhm.
That was part of the agricultural system from Israel, part of the civil law that was nailed to the cross in Galatians. So
Mhm.
that section in Galatians that says, because they're talking about circumcision, right? If you just take the word circumcision out and put the word tithing in, you'll see what it does to you. It severs you from Christ.
Mhm.
It makes Christ useless to you. Why? Because you're putting yourself back under the yoke of the law.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
Malachi, the most abused prophet in the entire Bible, is that book was written to the priests. It was not written to the people.
Yep.
And what you have to do is you have to cross reference it with Nehemiah to understand how God was being robbed of the tithes. Nehemiah went back to Babylon, and when he left, the person he left in charge let somebody into the storehouse, which is not the local church, by the way. It's an actual storehouse where they kept the tithes,
Mhm.
and that person was not even Jewish, so it was like defiling it. And then everybody stopped tithing because they weren't collecting the tithes in the storehouse anymore. They let this guy stay there, and that's a very brief summary of it.
Yeah.
So
Actually, the lie I'm sure you said was the one with Abraham. Uh, I actually looked up that thing, that story, because it just something sounded off. So what I did, I just asked uh, the AI I was using. I said, "I'm not researching theology. No, I just want a historical fact." So I said, "What was the custom uh, uh, for the ancient Near East when it came to tithes?" And what I found out was the custom was you give 10% to the guy who's gonna watch over you. That's what the whole thing was. No, Chikavek,
Melchizedek,
Chikavek.
yeah.
I keep mangling that name.
It took me 5 years to get that name right. So
So,
if you want to tithe like Abraham or Abram, then what you do is you tithe one time after you win a war, and you give up the spoils. He didn't give anything up of his own wealth, his own money. He gave up the spoils of the war that he had just fought,
mhm,
and you have to give it all. He didn't give 10%. He gave all of it because he didn't want, except for he left some for his troops,
yeah.
because he didn't want anybody to be able to say that they made him rich when he got everything from God.
Hmm.
That's not a model for tithing for today. That's absurd.
No, it was really meant to that. But what I found out, there was a
And it was custom. It was customary at the time.
it was a yeah. So it wasn't really quite what it was being said in the church, because okay, that God is a provider. He is caring already, and uh, and giving, and wait, who is supposed to give in a way that help the poor, the needy, and all that? Hmm? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. That was one of the first chapters. Was the Abram lie chapter, then the Jacob lie, Jacob tithe. Uh, there is a reference. First of all, it never says whether he actually ended up following through on what he promised. It was a promise he was making to God, and it went something like, "If you like bail me out of all the bad decisions I've ever made in my life, I promise to give you 10%." Okay, well, if that's the standard, then we can all sit there and pray, God, bail me out of everything that I've ever done wrong in my life. Fix me. There was also like material like wealth involved, and I don't remember the exact phraseology, but basically Jacob was like asking for the moon, and he said, if you do that, then I'll build this altar and I'll give you 10%.
Mm.
But there's no indication that he ever actually followed through on it. That's the first point, and that was actually in my original book, and the publisher took it out. He's like, you're smearing Jacob's name. I'm like, I'm just saying what's in the Bible and what's not in the Bible, and it's not in the Bible. So it's Jacob. If you want to say he tithed, maybe he tithed once.
Mm. Got a little.
We're off track though, as usual. We're talking about my first book that's been out for 14 years.
Yes, and I know, and but I did intend we were going to be doing stuff about books, so we're not
Yeah,
too
fair
off
enough.
track. Hmm?
Christian nationalism. There's got to be plenty to talk
Yeah.
about there. What
And
would you like to talk about? Would you like to talk about? Would you
oh,
like to talk about Mr. Kirk and watch? Or are we going to lose half the audience if we do that?
I don't know. I know there are people who think, okay, he was a Christian, but I know I have a friend who feel like he died as a martyr. He doesn't
That's
claim
ridiculous. He did
Charlie
not die
Kirk
as a martyr.
was perfect or anything. Yet, me, I was, and yet it was on Flashpoint, and what I thought was, oh, this is a political organization that had a veneer of Christianity, but it wasn't a faith-based organization at all. I
No,
saw nothing religious about it. And
that's
if it really
correct.
was, why would they ask Dave Rubin, to speak at one of their events? Do you know who Dave Rubin is?
Yeah,
Yeah. For those of you guys who are watching and have no idea, he's gay. That's all you got to know. He's conservative and he's gay. I thought Christian faith-based organizations aren't exactly thrilled about that idea. Hmm?
it depends on what they can use. So this is
Mhm.
hang on a second here.
What's that?
I'm actually going to my book. So these are just some quotes. Charlie Kirk, a patriot, a conservative, a leader, a builder, an advocate, an author, a lover of freedom, a husband, a father, a Christian, and a warrior. He pursued that truth with more vigor than anyone I've ever met. But over time, he realized, like many of us have, this is not a political war. It's not a cultural war. It's a spiritual war. Pete Hegseth. These are quotes from his funeral.
Mm-hmm.
First, Western civilization, shaped by Christianity and the Enlightenment, is under attack. Our lineage and our legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities. They produced art and architecture. They built the industry. Erica Kirk, stands on the shoulders of thousands of years of warriors of women who've raised up families,
Mm-hmm.
raised up cities, raised up industry, raised up civilization, who pulled us out of the caves and from out of the darkness into light. And the light will always defeat the dark. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. I cannot imagine. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army they have arisen in all of us, because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness. You are jealousy. You are envy. You are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We built the world that we inhabit right now, generation by generation, and we will defend this world we will defend goodness, we will defend light, we will defend virtue. You cannot terrify us, you cannot frighten us, you cannot threaten us, because we are on the side of goodness. We are on the side of God.
Oh,
Stephen Miller from Charlie Kirk's funeral.
yeah.
That is an insane quote. We, you all suck. And I might add, I might add that I'm getting a little tired of the misrepresentation of who Charlie Kirk's killer is. He was a radical right, not left. He was raised in a radical right family. He was given a gun at the age of 5, and he chose to use it at the age of 21 or whatever the hell he was. So, yes, he went to the other team. He went to the other team in the last 6 months of his life, but that doesn't mean you get to dismiss the first 21 years. Like, he didn't develop radicalism in the last 6 months of his life.
Mm-hmm.
So at best, it's ambiguous, in my opinion. It's a shame that we have to do this in this country, where whenever there's a shooting or something really bad, the first thing everybody does is, "I hope he's not on my team." Yeah.
I tell you. Uh, oh boy.
What do you mean, Gary?
No, no. I said Terry was saying.
No, Gary made a comment.
Yeah, I was sorry. I didn't quite catch what the Gary say. You.
You think what was directed at the radical left?
Yeah. What do you mean? What would get? Oh, the whole relationship between I Charlie Kirk and the furry friend. Oh yeah, like
Yeah, Terry, that's correct. Listen, first of all, we shouldn't have to. That's yeah. That was that from Kirk's funeral. That quote that I read
oh.
from Stephen Miller. So that's not a eulogy. That's a political statement. But the whole thing was politics. They had pyrotechnics. I mean, listen, I don't know who's going to be in charge of making sure that my my funeral goes off well. But if you can get some pyrotechnics, that'd be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So people are like coming out to like fireworks. Uh, Obviously we shouldn't even have to say this, but obviously nobody should die in this country for their beliefs, whether you agree with them or not.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tragedy.
Yeah.
What happened? But let's not like rewrite who Charlie Kirk was. I mean, TPUSA was founded by billionaires. They funded it. Now Charlie Kirk did the work, and he's very good at what he did, and he made millions of dollars doing it. But what his job was to poke the bear. That's all his job was. He was a political provocateur.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be in politics on the right in this country in this day, you must be Christian because that's 80% of the voting bloc.
Mm.
So to me, his faith was informed by his politics, not his
Mm.
politics informed by his faith. By his faith. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Terry. He provoked that. He poked the bear. That was
Mm.
his job, and he did it very well. So it's like people sit there and go, "Well, do you really think he was racist?" I don't know. I don't know. I don't know his heart. All I can tell you is what he said, and what he said is racist. Now, whether or not he said it because that's just simply the brand, I can't tell you that. I have no idea.
Mm.
But when you start claiming that Supreme Court justices got their job because they took it from white people, I think that I think you know what you're saying, right? That's
Mm.
correct, Gary. Yeah, there's no way because tax cuts for the top 1% does only takes you so far. So
Oh.
the real problem, and I don't want to turn this into the Kirkification of Barry's show, but the real issue is what is done to the church. Is like you start seeing like people claiming that revival has come not because of Jesus, but because of Charlie Kirk.
Mm.
And if you dare to speak against him,
Mm.
right? And that's another quote from the funeral, Laura. That's in my book too. Is one of the other eulogizers compared him to Stephen.
Mm.
Tucker Carlson compared him directly to Christ.
What?
Yeah, absolutely. You talk for a second. I'll find the quote.
Okay. I knew I hardly follow much. Uh, how is it that I'm watching Flashpoint, which I know how some of you guys feel, I'm getting more of a true image of who Tony Kirk is, and I look out the window, as it were, at everybody else, and I'm seeing all these other strange claims, and I'm going, what the heck is going on here? Why am I finding out that Gene Bailey was actually being truthful, and these guys don't even know what the heck they're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I'd stay away from Flashpoint, but
Oh, I stopped watching Flashpoint a
that's like
while
that's like
back.
Hank Kunneman and Lance
I know,
Wall, and
I know all about it. But see, I was interested at first. I'm like, okay, and I knew what they were going to be doing as soon as Trump got elected. I'm like, sorry, but I'm not interested in you playing cheerleader. Mm.
yeah. So the exact quote: Charlie would have loved this, not just because he loved large groups of people, but because ultimately he was a Christian evangelist, which he was not. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about people in power. He starts doing the worst thing you can do, which is telling the truth. And they hate it. They just go bonkers. They hate it. They become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. But the main thing about Charlie and his message, see how he's interweaving Jesus and Charlie? The main thing about Charlie and his message is he was bringing the gospel to the country. No, he was not.
No.
He was doing the thing that people in charge hate the most, calling them to repent. Politics at its core is the process of critiquing other people and getting them to change. I don't know about that. Christianity, the gospel message, the message of Jesus begins at repentance. Christianity calls upon you to change. So as we proceed into whatever comes next, and clearly something's coming next, remember this moment. Remember being in the room with the Holy Spirit humming like a tuning fork. That's the way right here. This is the way. And that's what Charlie Kirk was saying underneath it all. Tucker Carlson
Um,
from his funeral, directly comparing Charlie Kirk to Jesus Christ.
uh, no, no.
So,
Uh, actually, it sounds like they were trying to do a repeat of what was done with Obama and made him sound like very messianic. And now they're trying to do it with Cook because they ain't going to be able to do it with Trump.
well, I mean, unless you mean like the black church in with Obama, because I don't remember anybody else deifying Barack Obama. In fact, the church probably, hates Barack Obama second only to Jimmy Carter. Um,
No, actually, remember, we also have a whole bunch of black Christians who, uh,
well, that's what I said. I said unless you're talking about the black church.
yeah, that's who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for them, but certainly I think I think I said I think it was the last time we were here, but I kind of understand, like, when you have the history that African Americans have in this country, between slavery, Jim Crow, and everything else, and they finally kind of got, there's somebody in the office that looks like them, that they get to show their kids looks like them, and yeah, maybe that led to some deification.
Yeah, and and that's why
But,
I'm
but,
like,
Gary, but Gary, they didn't mean it like he was the literal Messiah. They just,
oh,
what I'm saying, like, not that I remember anyway.
yeah.
I think people who are outside the faith use the term Messiah as a word, not as the Messiah.
Um, where was I hearing most of it from? On Fox News. They were the one who were claiming that. I
Uh,
didn't really pay attention to CNN.
listen, they're fair and balanced, right? So
Yeah, I'm sure.
yes, Gary, that's the other lie that Michelle Obama's a man. I just listen, like who you like, hate who you hate, but can we just like not like demonize people and like
Yes.
she's a mother. I'm not saying you, Gary. I'm saying the people who are putting that lie.
Oh,
That's like the lie of like the Haitians eating the pets. It's like these are real people,
yeah.
and you could certainly make the case that the Obama's Christianity is one that's on the liberal side, to say the least.
Mhm.
But I don't recall Barack Obama walking around talking about grabbing women by the genitals. So
Yeah.
it's like, there's a reason that this was the chapter on conferred righteousness. This is the reason why you don't confer righteousness upon evil people,
Mhm.
because that I know I always wondered, how do you explain the kids? Which kids? Oh, I got your point. Yeah, if she's a man, how do you explain the kids? Yeah, it just everything is just so disgusting at this point, and how we talk to each other and treat each other, and but again,
Mhm.
I try to separate this out when I talk about this, when I do videos about it. These are Christian discussions. These are not political discussions. Neither party cares about the cause of Jesus Christ. So the Titanic analogy, which is I think chapter 8 in the book,
Oh,
is we're on the Titanic. We've already hit the iceberg. Trust me, I've seen the movie. The ship's going down. There's a lifeboat. His name is Jesus. Our job is to point people to the lifeboat, not argue about which captain is best to drive the ship into its icy grave. So, whatever. It's like I tell people, it's every election eve. I make a post on Facebook that says, I just checked with God. He wants me to assure you he will be on the throne tomorrow. Like just stop. He doesn't need your help.
yeah.
It's like Jack Hibbs wrote before the election that even if you were going to stay home and not vote, which by the way I think is a perfectly righteous choice from a Christian perspective, to not choose the lesser evil, but he said even if you were going to do that, you were going to hell.
No.
And I'm like salvation now is based upon my voting record. We're in a lot of trouble if that's the case. It's like you're going to go up to the pearly gates, and Jesus is going to have your voting record in your hand, and Charlie Kirk's going to be next to him, and he's going to go, well, you had saving faith in me, and you believed in the cross and the blood, but Clinton in '96, what were you thinking? There's the down escalator.
Hmm. Ay, ay, ay. It is sad how much we reminded of scripture that in yeah, Romans 14, where we're not supposed to be looking down at our brothers who have a different view. If one eat meat and the other said, "Oh, I can only eat vegetable," neither one of them are to look down upon the other.
Really? Because I've looked down on people who only like vegetables my whole life. I'm wrong?
What?
Just kidding.
I
I'm,
know you mean. I didn't
I,
get. I
I,
didn't get what you said.
I'm a carnivore. So I said, really? I said, I've been looking down on people who only eat vegetables my whole life, but I guess I need to repent.
Oh, my friend Chris Wilbur would love you for that. When
Isn't there a proverb that says it's better to have like a plate of meat and throw the vegetables in the garbage or something like that?
no,
I'm paraphrasing. No,
I know.
Gary voted for Bush twice, so he's in trouble. Listen, the church loved George W. Bush, and then I remember on his way out, he gave an interview and he said that he believed that all religions lead to God. And I just remember laughing, thinking, like, for 8 years, the church is like, Bush is an evangelical. Bush is an evangelical. On the way out, he's like a universalist. So
Oh, great. First it was Jimmy Carter, who was
Jimmy Carter's like the closest thing we've had to a Christian president. I know nobody likes to
turned
say
out to be
that, but he's a
universal
Baptist.
too. And the sad part is, I've actually learned a long time ago in my political science professor, who happened to have been, I found out, be a Republican, and he had said that when it comes to the two political parties, they do exactly the same thing. They have the carrot, and it's always dangling just in front of you, but just out of your reach.
Oh,
And they'll say,
like revival,
"What?
like revival.
Yes, revival. Oh, if we just have enough people, we
Yeah.
can overturn Roe v. Wade. That's what the Republicans.
And now
Who
abortion's
them?
gone up since Roe v. Wade is overturned. Good job.
What?
The rates of abortion have increased since Roe versus Wade was overturned. Look it
Yeah.
up.
And,
So
and we told and the black them, correct? They go after and tell uh, them, oh, if we have just enough, you got to put us in power, or the filthy Republicans will steal your rights.
well,
That's
I mean, politics is nothing if not hyperbolic. So every
oh,
election is the most important election of our lifetime. Look, it's funny because Gary posts Trump was on Air Force One a few weeks ago and said he doesn't think he's going to heaven. He said that more than one time, by the way,
oh yes, he did.
and it's a shame because Gary, let me be clear. I may not be the biggest Trump backer. I think that's a fair statement, and still recognize that it's a shame that he has nobody around him who can preach the gospel to him.
Mhm.
Because if you think it's coming from Paula White or Landon Schott
No.
or Robert Jeffress, good luck.
Hmm.
There's a reason, by the way, why he chose all them. He chose all them because they serve the same God, Mammon.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not registered. I've never been registered to either party. Even before I was saved, I was never registered to either party. I live in New York City. In '90, the first time Giuliani ran, I voted for him, mostly because Dinkins was a horrible mayor. But he lost his mind in the first term, so I voted for I don't remember who ran against him in the second term. Whoever it was going to get crushed anyway, so it didn't matter. But
Hmm.
like I could have voted for John McCain in 2000 because I think he should have been the candidate, but they push polled him in South Carolina. The Republicans did, and they made these calls to people saying, "What would you think if John McCain fathered an illegitimate black child from Africa?" And what the lie was, John McCain had adopted an indigent child from Africa. A lot of people don't know that. And they tried to make it sound on a push poll like he had fathered the child out of wedlock. And he lost South Carolina, and then Bush went on to take it. So And
Mm.
I could have voted for McCain in 2008 until he picked Sarah Palin.
Mhm.
Then as a civic duty, I couldn't vote for him. You could not allow that empty brain one heartbeat away from the White House, from the presidency. I'm sorry.
Oh,
If you can't answer what magazines you like to read, disqualified.
uh, was her saying, "Oh, I could see Russia from outside my." Well, she was governor, I think, of Alaska.
That's correct.
No.
She's one time she visited Boston and she confused John Adams with John Quincy Adams, and she was insisting John Quincy Adams was the founding father. She was like off by like 100 years. She thought Paul Revere was working for the British. What about Joe Biden? Joe Biden's Catholic. So Joe Biden's opinion on abortion, his direct quote is, you know, in my personal life, in my belief system, I'm pro-life because I'm Catholic. That's what the Catholic faith teaches. But it's not my job as president to force everybody to believe what I believe.
Hmm.
That's what his position was. So like it, hate it, you know, but he's clearly Catholic. He's been Catholic his whole life. So
That that's kind of like the same statement uh, Trump said. He didn't want to. I don't think he even wanted to touch, but because on the right, uh, we're we're like, we gotta have a president who's gonna force. And I'm like, no. I've said a long time ago, and I say it again. You got to change the culture. Get that through your freaking sick head.
listen. I think that's a bit of a stretch, Gary. I don't think he had Alzheimer's for 4 years. I think certainly in the last year you saw some deterioration.
Yeah.
But by the way, you're seeing the same deterioration now. So uh, Donald Trump shows clear signs of dementia. So
Oh,
uh,
Donald Trump now has dementia.
yeah, he's saying he constantly confuses like what country he's in, and he says all sorts of bizarre things, but people just write it off because Trump is Trump, right? Whereas Biden had that crash moment in the debate where everything kind of solidified for everybody. And you should blame we should blame the Democratic Party for not standing up to him a year before that and insisting that, hey, you said you were going to do one term and let somebody else run, and he should have stuck to that.
Hmm. Actually, it was obvious when Biden was started running uh, in 2020 that there was something seriously wrong. I could sense it easily. Now, I have some experience dealing with my mother who had dementia, and I've seen how it affects. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I saw the early signs of it. And I'm like, they're using this guy like a puppet. And I had a sense, like I've been told, the Biden you see now is not the one you knew from
No,
back.
listen, we get old.
I
You
know,
know,
but it was
it's
very obvious that he had serious problem at that
well,
point.
it was obvious after the debate, that's for sure. You know, I think they they covered up a lot before that.
Oh yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah, Gary, I agree. Trump is a babbling idiot.
Mm.
Oh, you meant Biden. Sorry,
Yes.
I'm just busting your chops, Gary. Uh,
Uh, and you're what, 58?
I'm 58. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, I don't like. Believe it or not, I really would prefer to not even have any political discussion at all. It's the NAR Dominionism is infecting the church. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The
It is.
problem is that people, MAGA, as Gary says, has now become the religion. So I think I talked about this before, but there are major discernment groups on Facebook that are completely overrun by dominionists, and you
Mm.
can't have a conversation with them. You can't point out like somebody just in one of my comment threads was just regurgitating NAR talking points, and I'm just Like what you're telling me is exactly what the NAR Dominionists. Oh no, no, I'm not a Dominionist. Yeah, you are. You just don't realize it.
Mhm.
So, I, I mean, Laura's asking about how can we be blessed as an. I don't know. So, isn't that the general stance though of the NAR, that we're blessed and highly favored, that God blesses America? Yet, uh, as Laura points out, 23,000 babies slaughtered daily.
Mm.
Again, which president in the last 50 years is the one that's most likely to have paid for an abortion in his lifetime?
Mm.
Donald Trump. So we celebrate things as a church that we should not celebrate.
Mm.
He cheated on his first wife with his second wife, his third wife with a porn star.
Mm.
Um, he's a convicted rapist. So I don't know. This is the problem again with conferred righteousness. When you try to, there's nothing wrong with saying that you believe that Donald Trump was the best candidate to be president. Particularly also since the other choice wasn't particularly
Mm.
palatable, right? Which is, he's had the luxury of running against Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton in his two victories. So I think a lot of people, Obama definitely deported more people, Gary,
Mm.
but he didn't shoot anybody in the face while he was doing it, right? There was that's the difference. I don't think anybody would. First of all, Trump should get all monumental credit for shutting the border down. I mean, we haven't been able to do that in 6 decades.
Mm.
Yet he came in and somehow magically got it done in 1 year,
Mm.
less than a year, right? I mean, I would say 6 months in, you never heard anything more about border crossings.
No.
So he should get 100% of full credit for that.
Oh yeah, and I think
Um,
no, the
but
reason is because he basically ignored the nonsense that was going on. The truth is, neither Republican or Democrat wanted to secure the border. They actually didn't want to touch it.
you
The
know why?
Republicans, they just claim, oh, if we can secure the border, they're full of it.
Right.
Liar, snake, and deceiver.
Because the bottom line is the Democrats hope to turn them into their voters someday, and the
That's
Republicans
true.
the Republicans want to use them to mow their lawns.
Yep.
So nobody had any vested interest in shutting the border down, but Trump should get credit because he's absolutely done
Mm.
it. Biden's not special, Gary. So the border's been open. It was open throughout Trump's first term. It was open throughout Obama's term. This has been going on for decades. Like Barry just said,
Yeah.
nobody's wanted to tackle this until Trump came in, and he should get full credit for that.
Yeah.
But I just wish he wouldn't. I just wish he would do the enforcement bit as as well, and maybe not like shoot VA nurses in the back 10 times. Maybe we could find a more humane way of doing things. Is all I'm saying. They've deported pastors who've been here 30 years.
I think he kind of wanted to do it, but his base was screaming and hollering, "No amnesty!" or anything like that, and that's part of the problem. You got a base that's so emotionally wired they can't hear or think straight. Hmm?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want this to turn into like a solely carnal political discussion, but there is a reason why they don't want the voter ID law passed, and
Yeah.
it's a very valid reason. So, first of all, it's a solution in search of a problem. There's no problem with voting security in this country. Period. Full stop. End of story. There's zero. There's less than 1% of like votes cast in this country that maybe are suspect and shouldn't be cast. So there's not a problem to fix. But on top of that, the burden that it would place on people. Now you have your birth certificate. I have my birth certificate. I have my passport. You have your passport.
I tell you.
I don't remember the statistic, but it's pretty high the amount of people who actually don't have those IDs.
Mhm.
And in many cases, we live in cities, so we think it's no big deal. I can just hop over to New York City and I can get any replacement thing that I need. But if you live in like rural America, you're talking about traveling halfway across your state to get it. It's not, and it's not providing any extra layer of security. So it's just eliminating the ability for some people to vote. And I just, I think that there has to be like a common sense solution. Like if the government's so insistent, then the government should supply voting IDs for everybody, free, by the way. And this way,
Mhm.
nobody can complain. Everybody's got to have the ID to vote. No problem.
But we already have ID.
Chuck Schumer's right. Millions of people will be taken off the rolls.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. I don't like Chuck Schumer, by the way, whatsoever.
But we can give him credit when he's right on something. Yeah. No.
What's Jed Clamp?
What?
I'll give me a break. I'm trying to understand what Gary's saying.
I, I'll give me. Oh,
What's
I'll give
what's
me.
Jed Clamp? I,
Are we talking about uh Jeb Jeb Bush or Jeb?
and that's correct, Dan. Women who've taken their husband's name and never resolved it from an ID standpoint will also not be able to vote.
Hmm.
Oh, from Beverly Hills. Yeah. Uh,
Oh,
but again, as is our typical path together, Barry. We veer off
I,
into
no, this is normal for us.
because to me
But
again
when we started talking about NAR and Christian nationalism, guess what? It was, as my Calvinist friend would like to say, it was predestined.
yeah, Gary, we're talking about them not having the ID that's needed in order to establish this under the law that they proposed. I'm saying that it's harder in rural America to then get that ID. I don't think it's any more statistically likely that rural America wouldn't have ID. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the ability to replace it is harder if you live in rural America than you live in like we live in cities.
Well, actually, you also got people with disability who may not have
Yeah.
had the
I think they carved that out in the law, if I'm not mistaken. They carved out some kind of a ability. I don't know. I didn't read the law, which I'm sure they didn't either. So, but again, we can get easily sidetracked on any number of political
that's
discussions.
the problem.
Um,
When we talk about Christian nationalism, okay, what does the Christian nation even look like? I would agree that
Jesus never
oh,
asked us to make a theocracy.
oh
So this was not a Christian nation when it was founded. That's a rewrite of American history. Now, Christianity has certainly played a role in the spiritual formation of the country.
yeah,
Um, but the country also was based upon being a model of a melting pot. So we allowed everybody else in,
hmm,
and we didn't. When we let them in, we didn't say you've got to conform to our religion. So now, what are you going to do? Preach the gospel, and let the Holy Spirit draw who He draws. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We're not here to revive what was something that was never alive.
hmm. Actually, I read a book, and I even reviewed it on on the channel. Uh, uh, Somebody who was basically a historian. He looked at the history. He said, "Yes, the Treaty of Versailles makes it clear this was not a Christian nation, but the people kind of see it that. Why? Because many of them were Christians, and they saw, saw the practices of Christian principles and ideas, but." It wasn't something like if you go to Saudi Arabia, you're going to be hit in the face with the fact that they're Muslim, but it wasn't exactly obvious here. Hmm?
You know, I believe, and I think I say this in the chapter on whitewashing American history. I believe this is the best country in the history of secular nations. I believe that we've done an immense amount of good throughout the centuries,
Yeah.
but that doesn't dismiss the stuff that wasn't so good.
Oh
That
no,
doesn't
no.
dismiss the genocide of the Native Americans who we displaced. It doesn't dismiss slavery. It doesn't dismiss Jim Crow. It doesn't dismiss the imperialistic era, which is where we basically went in and just took the natural resources of other countries. And I just think that as adults we should be able to say, this was good and this was not so good,
Yeah.
and be able to hash it out. But you can't do that with a Christian nationalist.
No.
So, and again, that's just antithetical to. Thank you, Laura. That's
Mhm.
correct. It's just antithetical to what Christ taught, what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches we are supposed to be pilgrims and sojourners through this land.
Mhm.
Citizenship is in heaven, according to the Bible, and God does not allow dual citizenship. So, um, you know, your your faith should inform your vote. I don't have an issue with that. But to pretend that to pretend your side is the only righteous side
Mhm.
is where I kind of draw. I had a friend of mine back in, I think it was 2016, and we were talking politics and like what to do, like this is like a choice between like airline food and hospital food,
Oh.
you know, and he just said, I've decided that if this is the best the world has to offer me, I'm not voting.
Mhm.
Spurgeon said, when presented with the choice between two evils, I choose neither.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
and the analogy I always use is 2012. I feel God gave the church a test.
Yeah.
He made that contest between a completely liberal Christian, Barack Obama,
Yep.
and a member of a satanic cult in Mitt Romney. This is, by the way, the introduction to the book. How Mitt Romney decultified Mormonism,
Mm.
because up until that point, Mormonism was listed correctly as a cult on the Billy Graham Association website. The problem Franklin Graham faced is that he was recommending to all Christians that they had to vote for the Mormon. Why? Because he had a little R next to his name. So he took Mormonism off the list of cults on the Billy Graham Association.
Mm.
And God, I'm sure God was up there going like, "You voted for the member of the satanic cult." I, I had this conversation with my brother who's not saved, and he's like, "But he's a nice guy." I'm like, "Listen, I think a lot of Mormons are nice guys, but it's a non-starter for me."
Mhm.
So, and then God was like, "How am I gonna top that?" And 4 years later, He gave us Trump and Hillary.
Mhm.
That was a heck of a choice.
Oh yeah, and basically we're getting what we deserve. No, we're getting what we deserve, and I am not talking nice deserves.
But you can't say that to people in the church today. You cannot present the possibility that Trump is judgment,
Oh.
not blessing, judgment, or both, or however way you want to slice it. So, Gary, you're a very nice guy.
Mhm.
It's that Tangeray guy that seems a little not nice. I finally met him yesterday.
We know you're a nice guy, Gary. You're not fooling anybody.
So, but seriously, you can't have a rational biblical conversation with an NAR Dominionist. There's
Mm.
just it's like you can have whatever opinions you want about like immigration, for example, but to use like a verse from the Torah that deals with how boundaries are set up to dismiss the entire canon of Scripture about how the stranger is supposed to be treated is just scripturally bankrupt. I'm sorry, it just is. So, and I'm not talking about shutting the border down, which is what Trump did. So, good on him, right? That stops the flow. But now the question is, what do you do with the people that are here, that you let in, that we let in, one way or the other?
Mhm.
That's correct, Gary. You can't. Any extreme, you can't have that conversation. So, what do you do with like literally? There was a girl who was, I think, 4 years old in California, who was here on a medical exemption because she needed. I never heard of this condition. I'm a disability expert by trade, but she apparently couldn't process nutrients correctly. So she had to be hooked up to a backpack that fed her nutrients through an IV for 14 hours out of every single day. And the Trump administration tried to deport her, which would have killed her. And I'm sorry, but one of my taglines is because Jesus, like you think that's what Jesus would have done? That's insane. That's biblically insane. I'm sorry. I don't know what gospel people read that they think cruelty is Christ.
Mhm.
I just don't understand it. There was a pastor, 30 years in this country. 30 years in this country. He had a flock in Florida, deported, shackled, put onto an airplane at midnight, and had Dr. Phil stick a microphone in his face first because Jesus. I don't get it. I just don't.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the point, right, Gary? So it's like, at where do you draw the line? And by the way, I'm open to a discussion about that. Like, do you draw the line and say, if you've been here 10 years already? First of all, we all agree, no criminal record allowed. I mean, real criminal record. I don't mean speeding, right? No criminal records allowed. You've paid your taxes. You've kept your nose clean. You've raised a family. We all kind of hopefully agree that that's not somebody who probably we should want to deport out of the country, right?
Mhm.
Just from a political standpoint, not even from a Christian standpoint. But maybe you make some kind of an argument that if you've been here, excuse me, um, less than, I don't know, like 10 years or something like that, and um, you spent the whole time on like public assistance or something like that. I guess we can have that kind of discussion. I
Mhm.
still don't think that you should be like raiding Home Depot and like dragging off people out of their cars and
Mhm.
um, I don't know. It's just not the Jesus that I read in the Bible. And maybe somewhere inside Gary, I'm just a bleeding heart liberal.
That's according to Ann Coulter. All Christians who are sincere in their faith are bleeding heart liberals, even though on the outside
Did
they.
Ann Coulter really say that?
Yes!
Wow.
Ann Coulter. She said that to Mike Huckabee, and I forget if it was Marco Rubio. The point was, as Christian, the conservative Christian, we care about the tradition and rules and law and everything, but in our heart, we want to exercise compassion and mercy, which doesn't really go well with true conservatism, which is what she is, and that was Ann Coulter's point. And I remember that decades later, and I'm like, okay,
I don't think Gary's going to ask me back on his show.
what?
he just said he just agreed that I sound like a bleeding heart liberal.
I hate to break it to you, Gary, but you also sometimes sound like a bleeding heart liberal yourself.
Well,
Not just
Next to
Gary.
Alabama Woodsman, Gary definitely sounds like a bleeding heart liberal.
Don't worry. See, that's the problem. We get so stuck with labels. I actually hate labels like that because more often than not, I'm listening to people throwing these words, especially in the church, and and half the time I have to refrain myself because I want to whack some people in the hard because you don't know what those words mean. And as Christians, we shouldn't be using political terms. Sure, say you're traditional Orthodox, uh, and in that sense, yes, no problem. But don't use it beyond what is appropriate.
Steve Gibney in the house. Uh, yeah, again, Gary, it's
Hey, Stephen.
the point is that at the point that they're dragging them out of Home Depot, they don't know anything. By the way,
uh,
if they're at Home Depot, they're working, right? That's what they're there for. They're day workers. So, uh,
hey, Stephen.
my
Guess
point
what, bro? You're liberal too. 'Cause
my point, Gary, is at the time that you're deporting them, you don't have any of those facts. So I agree, adjudicate it. That's what the immigration court system is for. And by the way, I believe the immigration court system pretty much sends back 80%. So the problem is that we didn't fund it. We didn't get enough judges to adjudicate the cases quickly. So they just let the people like go into the country, which I think both you and I agree is stupid. So to me, if you have somebody who's not paying taxes or has is a drag somehow on the economy, and you want to say that that person, doesn't belong here, we can have that discussion. I'm fine with that. That's not what
Mhm.
I'm saying. What I'm saying is that what they're doing is they're pre-deciding you're brown, so you have to go.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like you don't know who you're like deporting. They deported a kid, who was going to school in Boston to, I think, El Salvador, where she's never been her entire life. I I don't know. I guess I got a problem with that as a Christian, not as a liberal, because again, I don't ascribe to any political label.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Uh,
thank you, Gary.
did you hear what I said to our buddy Steven? I said, Steven, I hate to break it to you, bro, but you're kind of liberal yourself, without only in a good sense.
Gary, I'm not suggesting you were looking at them because they're brown. I'm saying that's the marching orders the administration has given clearly, since that's who's being targeted. So, and that's a good point, Gary. Working under the table. I guess that was the original point you were trying to make. Is
Yeah.
that if they're day laborers, they're probably getting paid in cash.
Hmm. Yeah.
But you know what? You know what's annoying to me, Gary? I don't know about you, but why are you not targeting the employers?
I,
Why are you not targeting the people who are citizens of this country and are breaking the law? Because if you did that and they stopped hiring them, then that would solve the problem, wouldn't it? But the reason why you wouldn't do that is because then the small businesses would go out of business because they would have to actually pay a living wage.
mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is a much more nuanced discussion, to say the least. And once again, kind of off the point that I was trying to make, which which is related to how Christian nationalism affects the church. Um, so just the general principle thing, like without getting into the nuance of, like which illegal immigrants should be allowed to stay versus which ones shouldn't. I think the larger point for me is what do you do with all the verses about taking care of the least in society?
Mm.
What do you do with them? You just, not you personally, Gary. I'm saying that,
We.
like the argument Jack Hibbs made basically is, well, in the Torah, God sets up borders. And I'm like, and that has nothing to do with this conversation. Nobody's suggesting countries shouldn't have borders. And like I said a half hour ago, Trump should get all the credit in the world for shutting our border down.
Yeah. I
So,
think the real problem is this. You say, okay, this is affecting the church. But the thing is, the people going to the church, we're not sitting there in the vacuum going, oh, no, we're interacting with the world around us. And what our faith is informed by what, remember what I said in that report I found? I had one that said, "Oh, a vast majority of the stuff we get from our pastors. We, that shaped our belief system. It also influenced our how we interact with the world around us. And when
yeah,
we have a warped version of it, it's going to affect us too.
yeah, I've said all along, only the devil can convince Christians
Yep.
to hate the people that need the gospel the most,
Hmm.
because that's what the NAR Dominionist theology does. Is that the political left, or quite frankly, it's the political center and the political left. Anything that's not MAGA, far right, are the enemy.
Hmm.
And actual preachers have have said this, have preached it. Go check out my video when I reviewed what the heck is his name, Dale Partridge's sermon after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. It was called Charlie Kirk and the Birth of the Wartime Church. And basically he was saying, this is war. You're our enemy. We're never going to be friends with you. And who he's talking to is anybody who's not MAGA. That that's Jesus. Would you explain to guys a bit about the purpose-driven model fits into all this? Yeah, the first chapter of the book deals with the purpose-driven church, not to be confused with the purpose-driven life. The Purpose-Driven Church was written in '95 by Rick Warren, and it is the blueprint for the up-and-coming cult of personality pastors that we see today.
Yep.
And it sets the foundation for how churches run. And the way in the book I go over, there's four kind of pillars that Rick Warren destroyed. Which is why I personally believe nobody has done more damage to a Christianity in my lifetime than Rick Warren
mm,
through the purpose driven church, because it set up the foundation for everything that we see today. So the pastor is no longer a shepherd. The pastor is a CEO. He's a vision caster. So we saw this. Annie Stanley once said that he felt the word shepherd should not be used anymore because it's no longer culturally relevant, which I understand because he's not a pastor, right? He's a hireling. But it's really damaging when you're being raised up as a pastor to not view yourself as needing to shepherd the sheep.
mhm,
So another thing is blessed subtraction, which was a concept that Rick Warren put out in a purpose-driven church that said, listen, people are going to want to leave. People are not going to want to follow your vision that you're casting. And you should not only let them leave, but you should encourage them to leave. And he referred to it as blessed subtraction. So I don't know how many of you remember Mark Driscoll's famous quote about how he was driving the Mars Hill bus, and
oh, yes, I've
and,
heard of it.
and underneath the bus was a pile of dead bodies. And by the time he was done, by God's grace, it would be a mountain. Those are the people he viewed that didn't want to get on the bus with his vision for what Mars Hills Church was. The beginning of that quote actually says, "I'm all about blessed subtraction." He is a Rick Warren adherent. He always has been. He's proudly open about it. And what it does is, this is how come you see in many local churches, people just leave. At my old church, they did it. If there was a church down the road, and we had this constant back and forth, where anytime people got pissed off in one church, they just went down the street to the other church. It's like nobody stayed. You want to talk about spiritual authority? There was none. And the pastor, the guy who replaced my pastor, who was a hireling, said one time from the pulpit, if you have angst with anybody in this house, you should leave now. And then the next week, he preached on the 99 and the one.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I remember looking at him going, like, can you not put those two together? Like, it literally 1 week is in between the comment and the sermon. Uh, so what Rick Warren did is he redesigned Christianity. Now he built off of the seeker-friendly models that have been around for 20 years, going
Mhm.
back to the 70s, and Bill Hybels and Willow Creek Church, where Bill canvassed the neighborhood before he opened the church and asked them what they wanted in their church, and they all said the cross really offends us. So he literally removed all the crosses from Willow. There was never any crosses in Willow Creek Church, and it's like that. The cross is supposed to offend you. That's the point.
Hmm.
And so that's what Gemma Corn's referring to. That's the first chapter of the book to kind of lay the foundation for where we're at. And I'm selling it short. I know that there's other parts of it that I'm blanking on.
Yeah. I was actually funny you were talking about this. I'm reminded of a short story I got to read and learn about decades ago. Uh, Goodman Brown. It was written by Nathaniel Hawthorne, I think, in the 17th or 18th century, a long time ago. He was uh, a Puritan, but he spoke out against some of the abuse, and he wrote a short story called Goodman Brown. After reading it, I'm convinced that he was practically describing uh, celebrity pastors. But he had a pastor, he's sees a pastor who is talking, and he finds out, oh my God, this guy's a what? He was admiring. He looked up to the pastors. He looked up to all these people, these heroes, and he ended up finding out that they weren't what he thought.
Yeah, but that ship sailed a long time ago in the NAR. So you've got to do something. There's this joke from '92 when Dennis Miller did a stand up routine, and he goes, Izzy Stradlin kicked out of Guns N' Roses. What in the hell do you got to do to get kicked out of Guns N' Roses? And it's like that's where the NAR is now. It's like, what do you got to do to lose your status as a celebrity? You can like do almost anything, right? If you remember when Bicklegate first broke, there was the allegation of the 19-year-old who was a daughter of a family friend that Bickle in his 40s when he was married lied to and said that God told him his wife was going to die so they could be together. So he lured her into a 4-year sexual relationship. That was not enough. That was not enough. People were okay with that. Like people were still calling for him to be restored. They sent Dr. Michael Brown down to IHOP to point his finger at everybody. Go, you stay off of social media. Don't you be gossiping about the man of God.
Mhm.
And then Misty Edwards came out in defense, and then all of a sudden the allegations came out about the 14-year-old and the 15-year-old, and everybody collectively moonwalked away from him. Except for Stephen Strang, because there is no bridge that Stephen Strang will not whore himself out for, and he was still calling for Bickle's restoration, even though the allegations of the minors came out. But the point being is, like, they were okay with him like seducing a 19-year-old sheep, and it's you can get away with. Look what Mark Driscoll did in Mars Hill. And
Mhm.
when he ran away in the middle of the night to avoid being disciplined by his hand-selected board, after he also stole $200,000 in tithe money, the machine, I don't know if you remember this, the machine, he had a problem, Mark Driscoll. The machine was not going to let him back in unless he apologized to Joel Osteen, because he had besmirched Joel Osteen in a sermon, and he said some really spot on things about how bad his theology was, calling it like puppies and rainbows and things like that.
Mhm.
So they set this up where he went down to Australia to Brian Houston's conference at Hillsong, where Brian Houston was going to interview him. It was all a setup for Mark to publicly apologize to Joel Osteen, and that's what he did. And as soon as he did that, the brand let him back in, and then he went down to Arizona, opened up his new church, recreated himself as the MAGA pastor. He's got a lot of problems right now too. I'm probably going to be doing a video on it, but like there's allegations of like he was making like 12-year-olds sign NDAs. He was like harassing somebody who was dating his daughter. Just like
Oh, I heard about that.
I just it's so frustrating and as I'm sure Gary and everybody in the room would agree, to see, like, in my videos, like I say all the time, like, I don't understand why people follow this person. Like, I get Joseph Prince, right? He's slick, right? And so much of what he says is actually good. It's just that the part that's not will send you to hell. But you have to really be a discerning person to understand the nuances of of Joseph Prince. But Kat Kerr, Katie Souza, Mark Driscoll, you got to be kidding me. So, but anyway,
Well,
I digress.
the more you talk, sometimes I end up having a little more respect for Dean Bailey, because I think he was the one who said, "We are not bringing Cat Kerr back," after that one time episode.
I want to see Kat Kerr and Timothy Dixon have a staff fight. Like Gandalf versus uh, who was the other wizard guy?
Salomon.
Thank you, Saruman. So I want to see like a Saruman Gandalf fight, like they had on the roof of Saruman's place there. Have Kat
Yes,
Kerr against
it
Timothy
was.
Dixon with their staffs. That'd be fun. I can already see the thumbnail. So hopefully, I got to go find out if there's any good videos of the two of them in the same video together.
Uh, I thought it, but I love the Lord of the Ring, and I love what Peter Jackson did. But that is,
I agree. As somebody who grew up with Token,
oh, I love tokens. I grew up with that. I read it.
they did a phenomenal job with the movie.
Yes, the original book. Uh, Decades later, I would watch that, and Lord of, and the Two Tower. Actually, I thought was impressive, and I felt like Lord was using it to help me better understand something I've read, misunderstood, and all that. Mm, yeah, yeah. Oh well. But anyway,
Any other questions from the?
any guys, do you have anything else, or shall we?
I feel like we left so much meat on the bone when it comes to NAR dominionism. Like there's got to be topics like we didn't even get close.
I know. Mm. But that's why I was trying to, because I knew dominionism wasn't just a noise thing. It actually it affects the. In fact, when you were talking about the Seven Mountains, you wouldn't know this, but that description you gave actually is described by Dr. Martin Luther King in an address he gave to the university up in Western Michigan. He actually gave a speech um, that literally fit the whole Seven Mountain stuff because he explained that you say Congress can't pass moral law, but yet Congress, referencing Romans 13, that
Well,
yes, Congress had a role to play, the media had the role to play, more so now, and education in reforming this country. So he was talking about different spheres how they shaped things. This was a long time ago, before all this dominion stuff, so it's not really new.
the way, like I said, each mountain I donate a entire chapter to because we
Yeah.
examine like what is the current manifestation of conquering. Thanks, observation station in the house.
Oh,
Um, what is the result right now of conquering these mountains? Because we're in the middle of trying to conquer them, right? So if you look at the business mountain, like I go into like the health share scams, where Christian organizations convinced believers to drop their health insurance and do a health share network, and they fleeced them millions and millions of dollars, denied all their claims. Sick people died, poor, penniless. Again, because Jesus and Dave Ramsey, everybody's favorite Christian financial guru,
mm,
is being sued by his listeners because he promoted a timeshare exit company that scammed all of its viewers. And he like promoted them for like years because he was getting paid a lot of money by them. And
mm,
this is so that's the end result of conquering like the business mountain. We talk about the arts and entertainment mountain is like the chosen, which is one of the most horrific, heretical pieces of garbage ever created. Before
mm.
that, it was the Bible miniseries, right? Everybody remembers the Bible miniseries on the
Oh,
History Channel
yes.
when the angels who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah were like ninjas.
What?
Which I'm okay with that from a creative license standpoint, but they didn't explain why they were destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. I got a bit more problem with that. Why did they start with the story of Moses? Not Moses, Noah. They started that series
Oh,
started with
yeah.
Noah
Somebody rowing your boat.
because by doing that they didn't have to deal with creation. They didn't have to deal with the 7-day creation. They didn't have to that was the whole point. In that series, it was great that Jesus, the Sassoon Jesus character, said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," and then it cut to commercial, so you wouldn't have to finish the verse. None come to the Father except through me,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all okay with that. So 10 years later, that's how we ended up with the Chosen, where now like we get to find out like Peter's like a drunkard who beats his wife. Matthew's autistic. If God didn't want to tell us the backstory, why are you telling us the backstory that you're making up?
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes our eyes off of Jesus. Because the Bible's not about the ancillary characters; it's about the main character. But Christians love it.
Yeah. Actually, when I was watching a little bit of The Chosen, it seemed more about the disciples than it was about Jesus. He was like relegated to the side characters, even though it's
That's the whole thing. That's the grift. So
yeah.
Dallas Jenkins is not very Christian in my opinion. Not to mention, it's entirely funded by the Mormon Church.
Oh yeah. Uh,
So
yes, and I have read from Daryl Yu. He explained all the stuff he did to help with the marketing and everything, because that's what he is, marketing. And I had no idea that he was Mormon.
I just did a video a couple of days ago. There's a new TV show about a pastor whose wife dies,
Oh yes, I heard about.
and he decides to date her best friend, who's one of his sheep. And Dallas Jenkins is the one who's promoting it. He's the one he's like the consultant on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like completely normalizing clergy sexual abuse. I'm like, what did Dr. Brown write the script?
Oh yeah, and of course, you. Well, since you're talking about that, we might as well mention the thing with Rutland. We saw our buddy Rob Wilson covered all that stuff. Remember?
What would you like to know about Ruslan? Ruslan, is in this for the money. But I'll be honest, he doesn't hide it. So like
Actually wasn't even looking at Rutland. I was looking at, oh, wow, he managed to get Mike Winger, Wes Huff, and all these other people to, and to come to these things. And I don't know what the heck they were doing there.
I don't know why anybody has ever been impressed with Wes Huff. Um, so Mike Winger,
A lot of people have been impressed with Wes Huff.
no, I know that. I'm just saying I don't get it. I thought that the clips that Rob was showing yesterday. Clearly, he gives off a Carl Lentz on Oprah vibe,
Oh,
which is,
no.
or Joel Osteen on Larry King Live, which is, you know, I'm not going to cross the line and say something that society might disagree with,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine if you don't have the courage to do that, but then don't take the interview
Mm-hmm.
because you're just doing more damage.
Mm.
So, but Ruslan, listen, he's I thought that I thought he never should have agreed to debate Joel Webben, who's an abject racist.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that he cleaned his clock. He came prepared and he did really well. But
Yeah.
Ruslan is in this for the money, and I don't think he's shy about it. And I'm not against, I'm not saying like Christian creators need to take a vow of poverty. I'm not suggesting that. But
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
but
But
he
I,
was he was saying yet the clip Rob was showing yesterday where he's like, "Come on, you got $75," and I'm like, "That's pretty rude."
yeah. No, what it is this. I see and I know the cost that these kind of ministry things that even guys like me do. If I didn't have the extra money and the circumstance, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. And I sympathize with others like Gary and others who have to struggle and they have to do that and they're paying these money. So yeah, so I would say hold it, guys. Yes, I agree about donations. Yes, when we should think a little, but yes, and I would agree that Ruthlon is going way over. I don't know what the heck that's all about.
It, it's
I
just
just don't like the
it's a
cost.
business it's a business model for him.
Yeah.
I can't speak to his faith or his theology or anything like that. I think that he did really well against Webben, but he should have because Webben's point was so unbiblical.
And
Um,
he had backup and God Logic, young man.
yeah, he did a good job too. So, but I don't have any illusions about who Ruslan is. I mean, Ruslan, he's very honest about it. I don't think that everything's behind a paywall. So,
Mhm.
like, I I reviewed some. He posted a snippet between him and Carl Lentz, which again, why are you interviewing Carl Lentz unless your purpose is to talk about how he's a false teacher?
Mm,
Forget about the affairs. Forget about sleeping with the babysitter in his wife's bed. I'm not even talking about that. Carl Lentz was a horrifically false teacher.
mm,
So it's like people don't get this. Like sometimes it's like Mike Mike Bickle. I've been writing about Mike Bickle since before the murder of Bethany Deaton in 2012. Like his theology's never been good. This is just God finally having enough.
mhm, mm. Yeah. Um, I don't know. Maybe because I am sensitive to what's going on here, I'm a little more like, but oh, well, that that's
Well, I think that you're kinder than I am.
oh no, I'm not talking about that. I'm not concerned uh about uh what Rob going after Rutland. No, I'm more like because what I see people overreacting and like could get upset if anybody even asks for donations or if anyone do that. It's like, and I'm thinking, dude,
Listen, this takes time, right? Barry, you agree? This doesn't happen like in a vacuum. The video I did yesterday took 3.5 hours to record.
Mm-hmm.
I do very minimal editing. It took a day and a half to get it finally ready to
Oh,
go. So and even then I couldn't even get my intro into it because
okay.
Clip Champ kept like folding on because it was too long.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. I don't do too much editing, but what I do is prep ahead of
No,
time.
and right, I wasn't even going that far, right? So it's like, but you're right. If the video I reviewed was Liberty Heist, I previewed that video, so that took 2 hours on top of it. So I don't mind if content creators want to like monetize their channel. I don't, I don't. I think it's a little unfair to say that they shouldn't be allowed to. But I think Ruslan's doing something a little bit different.
Yes, that's true. And
So
Gary does love his neighbor. I'm not sure what you were referring to. This,
did observation? Did you watch it? I know it was 3.5 hours. I
um,
swear I never review my own stuff. I rarely ever do. But like I clicked on it and like it went to a part and I literally am falling asleep as I'm trying to review this woman. My brain has just like turned to mush after 3.5 hours.
okay. I was
She
saying,
she said that she basically consigned Mike Winger to hell. That he's
yeah, that's pretty much in the thumbnail. Tells you exactly what to expect.
Liberty Heist. That's cute. Yeah, I should have thought of that. That's very clever. And yeah, I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. She turned off her comments like ahead of time. So because there's no because she literally said like she's never watched any of Mike Winger's videos. She claims God told her that 95% of his videos are false, and therefore, poof, that's it. So and she also walks in all five-fold ministry offices.
Oh,
So the only other person who's claimed that I know of is Mike Signorelli. So
good
they're
grief.
quite a team.
Yeah, I have a good friend of mine who told me when I showed him her uh, a piece of what Mike Signorelli just said. Those four guys look like they're all in the flesh, and they should be very careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she is actually she come from Assembly of God, and she does
Liberty Heist is a ordained evangelist from the Assemblies, I believe.
what?
Yeah, which is all you need to know about the state of the Assemblies of God right now. And I say that as a former Assemblies of God preacher.
I
I was a
know.
credentialed minister for the Assemblies of God. And once they got in bed with Bill Johnson in 2015, I was like, peace out. You can take your credentials back.
Yeah. Oh boy. I have a feeling my friend Judy would probably know about this and probably doesn't even want to be associated. Don't blame her. Mm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy. It is 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Uh,
Time for Drew Blooms.
yes. All right, then I'll let you go. And folks, want to
Thanks.
thank you for your time and hope you have a blessed day. And see ya when we see ya.